I used to think flirting was loud, obvious, smiles with teeth, touches that lingered too long. But that afternoon taught me how wrong I was. Everyone else thought she was his sister. That was the joke going around the shop. Your sister's back again. Tell your sister to stop judging our coffee. She never corrected them. She just stood there with that calm, steady posture, like the space already belonged to her. And somehow it did. She wasn't flirting. She was claiming the moment. I work at a small auto repair shop on the edge of town, the kind that smells like oil and burnt coffee and has a radio that never quite tunes in. I was underneath a Corolla when the doorbell rang. Not the quick jingle of a customer rushing in. This was slower. Intentional. Like whoever entered wanted to be noticed, but didn't need permission. I slid out on the creeper and saw her near the counter, fingers resting lightly on the glass, coat still on. Mid-40s, maybe. Dark hair pulled back without fuss. No makeup I could clock, but everything about her looked finished, put together in a way that didn't ask for approval. She was talking to Marco, the owner, quietly, leaning in just enough that he had to stop what he was doing. Her voice didn't travel, but it didn't need to. It anchored the room. I stood up too fast and hit my elbow. She glanced over, not startled, just curious. Her eyes held mine a beat longer than polite. Not a smile. Not nothing either. Sorry, I said, even though I hadn't done anything to her. She tilted her head. 4. I shrugged. Habit. That earned a small curve of her mouth. Barely there. Like she'd decided something privately. Marco introduced us, offhand. This is, he said my name. And this is my sister. She didn't correct him, just reached out her hand. Warm. Firm. When I let go, my fingers felt oddly empty, like I'd dropped something. I come by every Thursday, she said, more to me than to him. He forgets to eat. That's not true, Marco protested. She looked at him, then back at me. It is. I laughed before I meant to. She noticed. That seemed to matter. While Marco argued with the coffee machine, she wandered the shop, eyes tracing the walls, the tools, the half-finished jobs. Not judging, observing. When she stopped beside me, it felt deliberate, though I couldn't say why. You always this quiet, she asked. Only when I'm thinking, I said. And what are you thinking about? I hesitated. The honest answer hovered, stupid and dangerous. You. Instead, I said, whether that coffee's worth saving. She leaned closer, lowering her voice. It's not. Her sleeve brushed my wrist. Not accidental. Not lingering. Just enough to register. My skin tightened where she touched me, like it had been waiting. Marco finally gave up on the machine and asked if she needed anything else. She shook her head, already reaching for the door. Before leaving, she turned back to me. You should eat something today, she said. Quiet people forget. Then she was gone. The bell rang. The room felt louder after. All afternoon, I replayed that moment. Not the words, not the touch exactly, but the way she looked at me like she already knew something I didn't. Like she'd stepped into my day, rearranged it without asking, and walked out again. And for some reason, I kept wondering why she let everyone think she was his sister, and why I hoped she'd come back Thursday to do it again. The next Thursday, she didn't come in with the same certainty. I noticed it immediately. The bell rang the same way, but her pause just inside the door was new. Like she was checking the temperature of the room before stepping fully into it. Her coat stayed on longer. Her bag stayed on her shoulder. She scanned the shop, found Marco, then, almost reluctantly, found me. I was replacing a headlight when Marco called my name. Can you help her with the paperwork? I've got grease where my pen should be. She nodded once, polite, guarded. The confidence from last week hadn't disappeared, but it had folded in on itself, like she was conserving it. We sat at the small metal desk near the window. The chair across from mine wobbled. She noticed before I did and slid one of her feet under the leg to steady it. Practical, quietly competent. I'm sorry if I'm a distraction, she said, eyes on the form. I try not to be. You're not. I said too quickly, then corrected myself. I mean, no one minds. Her mouth twitched. That's generous. I handed her a pen. Our fingers brushed again, brief. This time she pulled back faster. I pretended not to notice, but my hand stayed warm longer than it should have. Up close, I could see the tiredness she'd hidden before. Not dramatic, just a faint shadow under her eyes, the kind you get from sleeping with thoughts instead of rest. She tucked a strand of hair behind her ear and sighed, barely audible. Long week? I asked. She paused, pen hovering. Long years, she said, then stopped herself. A quiet laugh followed, softer than before. Sorry, that was more than you asked. It's okay, I said. I don't mind listening. She looked at me then. Really looked. As if weighing whether I meant it. The radio crackled. Someone laughed in the back. The shop kept moving while something between us slowed. My son thinks I hover, she said finally. My ex thinks I don't care enough. And my brother. She glanced toward Marco, then back. He thinks I'm here to babysit him. And what do you think? I asked. She shrugged, but her shoulders stayed tense. I think I'm tired of being wrong no matter which way I stand. I didn't have anything clever. So I nodded. Sometimes that's all there is. When we finished, she stood and stretched slightly, pressing her palms to the desk. I noticed her hands then, strong, steady, a faint scar near her thumb. Hands that had done work. Held things together. Thank you, she said. For helping. Anytime, I said, and meant more than paperwork. At the door, she hesitated again. This time she turned back. You're observant, she said. That can be a burden. Before I could answer, she reached out and adjusted my collar. Quick, almost businesslike. But her fingers lingered just a second too long. Then she stepped away, leaving the air charged and unfinished. As the bell rang, I realized my collar didn't need fixing at all, and I didn't straighten it after. It was closing time when the storm rolled in, not dramatic, just persistent. Rain that didn't ask permission. Marco had already left, muttering about traffic, and the shop settled into that hollow quiet it only gets after hours. Tools put away. Radio off. The smell of oil softened by damp air sneaking through the cracks. She hadn't planned to stay late. I could tell by the way she checked her phone, thumb hovering, then slipping it back into her bag like it might burn her. I can wait it out, she said, glancing at the rain streaking the window. Unless you're locking up. I'm here, I said. Not I don't mind. Just that. Here. We sat at the small table by the window, the one no customers ever used. I poured the last of the coffee, cold now, and slid it toward her. She made a face, but took it anyway. Still terrible, she said. Consistency is our strength. That got a real laugh. It surprised both of us. She covered her mouth halfway through, like she hadn't meant to let it out. Up close, the tiredness was clearer. Not weakness, where? She rubbed at her wrist absently, then stopped when she noticed me noticing. Bad habit, she said. From what? From holding things together longer than they want to be held. She said it lightly, but her eyes stayed on the rain. I felt the pull then, the urge to step closer, to say something that might tip us into honesty. Instead, I asked, do you want to talk about it? She inhaled. Let it out slow. No, she said. Then, softer, yes. I don't know. Her phone buzzed on the table. The screen lit up with a name I didn't need to read to understand. She didn't pick it up. Just turned it face down with a practiced motion. He calls when it rains, she said, almost amused. As if weather makes him sentimental. I can step out, I offered. She shook her head. Please don't. The word please sat between us, heavier than it should have been. She leaned back, eyes closed for a moment. When she opened them, they found mine and stayed there. Too long. Close enough that I noticed the faint freckle near her left eye, the one you only see if you're paying attention. I'm not supposed to want quiet like this, she said. It makes things complicated. I won't make it harder, I said, though I wasn't sure that was true. The rain picked up. The lights flickered once. She stood, restless, then stopped in front of me. Close. Close enough that I could smell her shampoo. Something clean, unremarkable, suddenly unforgettable. She reached out, then hesitated. Her hand hovered near my arm, unsure. I should go, she said. I nodded. Didn't move. Didn't give her space or take it. For a second, just one, it felt like she might lean in or say my name or let that hovering hand land. Instead, the door creaked in the back as the wind pushed it open. She stepped away, but as she passed me, her fingers finally brushed my sleeve, intentional this time, and didn't let go right away. By the fourth Thursday, The shop felt smaller. Not physically. Just like the walls had learned something and were holding on to it. Even before she arrived, I caught myself listening for the bell, counting the minutes wrong on purpose. When it rang, I didn't look up right away. I needed a second to steady whatever was tightening in my chest. She didn't say my name when she came in. Just stood there, bag still on her shoulder, eyes already on me like she'd been looking since last week and never stopped. "Can we talk?" she asked. "Not about what?" "Just that." Marco was in the back, radio on low. The shop was technically open, but it felt borrowed. I nodded and followed her to the far corner near the parts shelves. We stood too close for coworkers, too far for anything else. She folded her arms, then unfolded them. Did it again. Finally let them hang at her sides. "This can't keep happening," she said. My stomach dropped, not because I didn't expect it, but because some part of me had hoped I was wrong. "I don't know what this is," I said carefully. She looked at the floor. "Exactly." The silence stretched. Not awkward, loaded. The kind where you can hear your own breathing and wonder if the other person notices how uneven it is. "I come here," she said slowly, "and I tell myself it's just errands. Family. Routine." A pause. And then I leave thinking about things I have no right to be thinking about. I didn't interrupt. I didn't step closer. It felt important not to. She met my eyes again, and this time she didn't look away. "You don't ask for anything," she said. "That's the problem." "I don't know what I'd be allowed to ask for," I said. Her mouth tightened. "Not angry. Afraid." "I'm not bored," she said. "I'm not lonely in the way people like to assume. I have a life. Responsibilities." She swallowed. "But when I'm here, I forget how old I'm supposed to act." I didn't smile. Didn't reassure her. The urge was there, loud, but it felt wrong to soften this. "I don't want to be something that makes your life harder," I said. She nodded. "Too fast." "Then why does it already feel like you are?" That landed. Harder than any touch had. Behind us, Marco laughed at something on the radio. A customer walked in. Normal life kept happening, completely indifferent to the fact that the ground under me had shifted. She took a step back. "Put space between us on purpose this time. I need you to help me do the right thing," she said. "And what's that?" I asked. She hesitated. For the first time since I'd known her, she looked unsure of her own words. "Tell me you don't think about me when I'm not here," she said. "Tell me this is just a place you work." I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. Her eyes filled, not with tears, but with recognition. Like she'd known the answer before asking. "Okay," she whispered. "That's what I was afraid of." She turned to leave, then stopped at the door. Didn't look back when she spoke again. "I don't trust myself around you," she said. "And that scares me more than wanting you ever could." The shift didn't arrive like a confession. It came the way most real things do, by accident. I was closing up early because the compressor was acting up again. The shop felt wrong without noise, like a room holding its breath. I was wiping down the counter when her phone buzzed where she'd left it, forgotten, face up, next to a stack of invoices. I didn't touch it. I wasn't trying to look. But the voicemail preview lit the screen. "Unknown number, 214. Then her voice came through the speaker before I could step away. "I know I shouldn't have said that," she said, breathless, quieter than I'd ever heard her. I didn't expect him to look at me like that. "And I'm not doing anything, okay? I swear I'm not." A pause. A shaky exhale. I don't know why it feels like something already happened when nothing has. The message cut off. The silence afterward was loud enough to feel in my teeth. I stood there, staring at the phone like it had accused me of something. Like I'd crossed a line without moving an inch. She came back in moments later, rain on her coat, hair slightly loose like she'd rushed. She saw my face before I said anything. "You heard it," she said. "It wasn't a question." "I didn't mean to," I said. I know." She set her bag down slowly. Her hands shook when she reached for the phone. She didn't listen to the rest. Just locked the screen and held it like it might disappear. "That was my sister," she said. "Not Marco. My real one." I nodded, unsure where to put my eyes. She leaned back against the counter, exhaustion finally winning. "I lost someone a long time ago," she said. "Not to death. That would have been easier to explain." A faint, humorless smile. "He left. Quietly. One day, I was building a future, and the next I was rearranging furniture so it wouldn't remind me. I didn't speak. I let her take the space. You don't remind me of him, she continued. That's the problem. You remind me of who I was before I learned how to shrink things. She looked at me then, really looked, like she was bracing for impact. I don't come here for my brother, she said. I tell myself I do. But that's not the truth. My chest tightened, not triumph, not relief. Just the weight of being named. I don't want to be your mistake, I said. Her voice softened. Neither do I. We stood there, close enough to feel each other's breath, far enough to still pretend we were being careful. She reached out, not to touch me, but to straighten the invoices beside my hand. Her fingers brushed mine anyway. This time she didn't pull back. I should go, she said. I didn't stop her. At the door, she paused. If this were easier, she said quietly, I wouldn't trust it. Then she left. I stayed where I was long after, my hands still warm, the shop unchanged, and the certainty settling in that nothing between us was accidental anymore. It happened on a Tuesday, which felt right somehow. Not dramatic, not ceremonial, just a day that didn't pretend to be anything else. The shop was closed, actually closed, not just quiet. Marco had taken the afternoon off, something about his kid's school thing. The lights were half on. Dust hung in the air like it had nowhere urgent to be. She showed up anyway. No coat this time. No hesitation at the door. Just a knock, soft, almost apologetic, and then she stood there, hands loose at her sides, like she'd already decided to stay. I don't have much time, she said. I nodded. Okay. That was it. No why. No should we. We'd burned through those already. She walked in and leaned against the counter, exhaling like she'd been holding something all day. The silence between us wasn't heavy anymore. It felt honest, like we'd stopped asking it to carry things for us. I thought distance would fix it, she said. Turns out it just made everything louder. I didn't try to make you come back, I said. I know. She looked at me then. Tired. Clear-eyed. That's why I did. We didn't move closer right away. We stood there, two people finally not pretending this was accidental. I noticed the small things, the faint crease between her brows when she thought too hard, the way she shifted her weight when she was nervous, even now. I can't promise this won't complicate my life, she said. I wouldn't believe you if you did. That earned a breath of a laugh. It faded quickly, replaced by something steadier. I'm not asking for anything big, she said. I just don't want to keep lying to myself. I stepped closer then, slowly, gave her every chance to step back. She didn't. Our hands met between us, not dramatic, not urgent, just fingers finding fingers, like they'd been waiting for permission. Her thumb brushed the side of my hand, once. She closed her eyes, forehead tipping forward until it rested against my shoulder. We stayed like that. No kiss, no rush, just the weight of her there, real and warm, breathing evening air that smelled faintly of oil and dust, and something new. This feels dangerous, she murmured. It feels honest, I said. She nodded against me. Didn't argue. After a while, we pulled apart just enough to look at each other. Not searching, not afraid, just aware. I should go, she said, the words softer now, less defensive. Okay, I said, and meant come back without saying it. At the door, she turned, hesitated, then reached back and squeezed my hand once. A promise without language. When she left, the shop didn't feel empty. It felt decided. I'm telling this from a quieter place now. Not distant, just settled. Enough time has passed that the sharp edges softened without disappearing. That matters. If they disappear completely, you start lying to yourself again. People like to ask when it started, as if there was a clear moment. A kiss, a decision, a night you can circle on a calendar. But that's not how it was. What changed first wasn't what we did. It was how we stopped pretending. She didn't become younger. I didn't suddenly grow up overnight. What shifted was smaller and harder to explain. We stopped using distance as protection. Stopped treating silence like safety. We learned that wanting something doesn't always mean you take it recklessly. Sometimes it means you take responsibility for it. We still moved slowly. Painfully so sometimes. There were conversations where neither of us won. Days where she pulled back, not because she didn't care, but because she cared too much to be careless. Days where I wanted more than she could give and had to decide whether patience was strength or fear. It turned out to be strength. She once told me love didn't scare her, patterns did. Repeating mistakes. Becoming smaller again. I watched her unlearn that in real time. Not by rushing forward, but by staying present. By letting herself be seen without performing competence or control. And me. I learned that wanting someone isn't about urgency. It's about attention. About noticing when to step forward and when to stay exactly where you are. About understanding that being chosen slowly can mean more than being grabbed all at once. There are moments I still replay, not because they haunt me, but because they remind me how quietly things can change. Her leaning her forehead against my shoulder. The way she squeezed my hand before leaving. How the shop felt warmer even when she wasn't there. We never became a story people would point at and call simple. And thank God for that. Simple wouldn't have held us. What we have now isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself. But it's real in the way that matters. Built, not assumed. Chosen, not chased. And sometimes, when I think back to that first day, to everyone calling her my sister and her letting them believe it, I understand something I didn't then. She wasn't hiding. She was waiting to see if I'd noticed the difference between being close and being claimed. If this story made you feel something, let me know in the comments. Would you want more stories like this?